Hey guys, Fletch here, bringing you another Premier League preview show. Yes, you know the drill by now. This is the show in which I predict the upcoming weekend's Premier League fixtures. There are 9 fixtures to get our teeth into today because the 10th game, the Aston Villa versus Newcastle game, has been called off due to coronavirus, as the Newcastle United team have had a bit of an outbreak of the virus over there. So unfortunately, that game has been postponed. However, on a bit of a good note, most of the stadiums around the country this weekend will have fans back in. There'll be a small portion of fans allowed back into stadiums this weekend, into some of the stadiums this weekend. So that is a good sign that progression is happening, and hopefully we continue that progression over the coming weeks, months, and hopefully get back to some normality at the end of it. But I digress. This is about the predictions. This is happening right now, and we're going to start with Saturday's lunchtime fixture. Yes, we're kicking things off here by seeing Saturday's lunchtime fixture that will see Burnley host Everton at Turf Moor. Both sides come into this game off the back of defeats from last week, as Burnley suffered a nasty 5-0 loss to Manchester City, whilst Everton suffered a 1-0 defeat at the hands of Leeds United. It's an interesting game, this one. Everton probably go into this one as favourites, but games are never won on paper, are they? And especially the early lunchtime kickoff, to say the least. But regardless, I think as we've seen over the past few weeks, Everton have seen the wheels of their promising start to the season fall off somewhat over the past couple of months, whilst Burnley haven't really begun the season as they would have hoped. So this game definitely sets up to be an intriguing encounter. And as I say, games are never won on paper. Everton go into this one as favourites, and that is what I'm going to predict. I'm going to predict that the Toffees will actually go on and win this game and get back to winning ways. And I'm going to predict a 2-1 victory to the Toffees and for Carlo Ancelotti's men, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin getting back among the goals. Next, we're going to jump right ahead to Monday night's clash that will see Brighton host Southampton at the Amex Stadium. Brighton showed their resilience and strength and how good they can be last week, as they picked up a point against Liverpool in a 1-1 draw. And I think that Graham Potter's side are probably a bit unfortunate to have not picked up more points already this season, but I digress. And as for Southampton, last time out, they did let a 2-goal lead slip at the hands of Manchester United and subsequently lost 3-2 to the Red Devils. And whilst they found themselves in 6th, which is obviously a good position for them, they will of course be frustrated with that loss and losing that 2-goal lead. So it does set up another intriguing clash here. And as far as this game goes, it's another tough game to call, a fixture that could go any which way. It could have any possible outcome. I'm going to have to go down the middle though. I'm going to have to predict a 1-1 draw, but I wouldn't be surprised if either of these two sides managed to pick up the victory right at the end of the game in this one. Next, we move on to Saturday's 3 o'clock fixture that sees Fulham travel to Manchester to take on Manchester City at the Etihad. City come into this game off the back of a bit of a frustrating night in the Champions League, of course. They drew 0-0 with Porto in a goalless stalemate there. But, of course, the last league fixture they played in, City absolutely hammered Burnley, winning that game 5-0, whilst Fulham, with all due respect, were surprising winners last time out, as they beat Leicester 2-1, as Scott Parker's side won on Monday night, picking up their second victory of the season. This game has a City win written all over it, doesn't it? Of course, in one of the most unpredictable seasons we've ever witnessed, there's always the possibility that an upset could be on the cards, but I think it's very unlikely, and this could be one of the more safer games to put your money on this weekend, as this game could be very similar to the scoreline that saw Manchester City beat Burnley last week, and that's why I'm going to predict a 4-0 victory for Pep Guardiola's side. The Hawthorns play host to our next game of focus as West Brom host Crystal Palace. The Baggies got their first victory of the season last weekend, of course. They managed to beat Sheffield United 1-0 last Saturday, whilst Palace lost 2-0 to Newcastle last Friday night, following the Magpies' very late quick-fire double. It's going to be a tough game to call this one as well, surprisingly. Mainly because you never know what kind of Crystal Palace side is going to turn up. West Brom, of course, have the opportunity to climb out of the relegation zone this weekend, whilst Palace could remain within the large cluster of teams that are jostling for position around the mid-table mark, and their chances are boosted, of course, by the return of their talisman, Wilfried Zaha. So with that being said, my prediction for this game is that I think Palace will just about go on to steal this game, and I give them the edge simply because of that Wilfried Zaha effect. I wouldn't be surprised of a draw, and although I'm not confident, I'm going to stick with what I said. I'm going to stick with a Palace victory, and I'm going to say that it will end 2-1 to Roy Hodgson's side come the final whistle. Saturday night, we'll see Frank Lampard take on Marcelo Bielsa as Chelsea take on Leeds at Stamford Bridge. The Blues' last Premier League outing saw them drew 0-0 with Premier League leaders Tottenham, whilst they had a successful week in the Champions League, of course, with that emphatic 4-0 victory over Sevilla, so they come into this game obviously in good form. Whilst Leeds were 1-0 winners in their last game as they beat Everton last Saturday. Leeds' task here is to try and find a way of scoring past a stubborn and more resilient Chelsea defence, whilst trying to keep out the likes of Tammy Abraham, Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech at the other end. A task made even more difficult by the fact that the Chelsea goalkeeper Edouard Mendy has only conceded 3 goals in his first 12 Chelsea appearances in all competitions since arriving at Stamford Bridge, keeping 9 clean sheets in the process, which is a great record for the newly acquired Blues goalkeeper. So it's a pretty tough task ahead for, obviously, the Premier League newcomers. And as far as the prediction goes, although Leeds have proven to be tough opposition for many clubs this season already, including the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City, this won't be an easy game by any means for Chelsea. I honestly do think that the Blues' solid defence and their firepower up front may be too much for Leeds to handle, and therefore I'm going to have to say that the Blues will be victorious here. And I'm going to say that Frank Lampard's side win this game by 3-1. Our next game of focus sees Sheffield United, a team that is yet to win at all this season, so far at least, take on Leicester at Bramall Lane on Sunday. United were involved in a bottom of the table clash last weekend, but came out defeated as West Brom went on to take all 3 points against the Blades in a 1-0 victory for the Baggies. Whilst Leicester also come into this game on the back of a defeat as they lost on Monday night to Scott Parker's Fulham as they won 2-1 against the Foxes there. On paper, this should go in favour of the Foxes, and it should be yet another game in which Sheffield United don't find their first victory of the new season, and in the process, of course, be a game in which sees the Foxes get back to winning ways. But of course, it's never as simple as that. So, could this finally be the game, 10 games into the new season, in which Chris Wilder's side finally get their first win of the new campaign? Well, my prediction, if it is to come off, says no. Because I'm going to go for a Leicester victory here. I'm going to say that the Foxes will come out of this one victorious. The past couple of weeks, of course, for Leicester have been pretty poor by their standards, but I can't see them losing 3 games on the bounce. So I'm going to predict a 3-1 victory for the Foxes and say that Jamie Vardy will be back amongst the goals for Brendan Rodgers' side. A tasty encounter is set to play out at Anfield on Sunday night as Liverpool face Wolves at Anfield. The Reds come into this game following a successful week in Europe in which they progressed to the knockout stages of the Champions League following a 1-0 victory over Ajax. However, their last outing in the Premier League saw them suffer a late equaliser at the hands of Brighton to share the points with the Seagulls following a 1-1 draw. For Wolves, though, they were victorious last time out as they managed to beat Arsenal 2-1 last Sunday. It's set to be a very interesting game, this one. It always is when these two teams meet, and one in which Liverpool will put their phenomenal home league record on the line yet again. But the Reds will need a better showing than the one they produced against Brighton last week, whilst, of course, Wolves have a number of dangerous players, particularly in the wide areas, that will look to exploit the weaknesses of a Reds backline that, along with their current squad, of course, is a bit mismatched due to the number of injuries that Jurgen Klopp's side has picked up since the beginning of the season. But simply because it's at Anfield, my prediction is that Liverpool will win this game. A draw is certainly possible by any means, don't get me wrong, a draw is certainly a possibility, but I just think with the Anfield effect and with Liverpool seemingly turning up at home whenever they are there, regardless of the opposition, regardless of their form, the Reds, I believe, will win this one. I'm sticking with the Reds to win and Jurgen Klopp's side to get the 3 points. I'm going to say 2-1 to the Reds. Our penultimate game on this list sees West Ham take on Manchester United at the London Stadium. The Hammers, I think it's safe to say, have been flying high in this Premier League campaign so far, as I don't think a lot of people expected this much out of West Ham, and I think they've defied a lot of people's expectations, because currently David Moyes' side find themselves in 5th place in the table and are currently on a run of 3 wins on the bounce. So fair play to David Moyes and for West Ham for doing that. And of course, they come into this game off the back of a 2-1 victory over Aston Villa on Monday night with slight help from VAR. But their opponents, Manchester United, come into this game off the bit of an up and down week as inconsistency continues to loom over Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his United side. United, of course, last weekend came from 2 goals down to beat Southampton 3-2. But midweek, they did lose in Champions League action against PSG. So again, up and down. And because of that up and down and inconsistency, this one does make for an interesting clash to watch this weekend. The Hammers proved to be tough opposition for most teams this current campaign. And of course, last season, if you remember, they were tough opposition for United as well. I think they took 4 points off United in both their meetings. And of course, like I mentioned, the United inconsistency, striking hot and cold and often very lucky, all blend together to make this incredible concoction of a must-watch game for this upcoming weekend. Prediction time, though. My heart, it says a West Ham victory. My head, it says a Man United victory. They'll steal the win. But I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with my gut and I'm going to call it down the middle and say that this game will end in a draw. Any result in terms of outcome definitely wouldn't surprise me. But I'm going to call it a draw and I'm going to predict a 2-2 outcome come the final whistle. And finally, we come to the main event of the weekend. The highlight of this round of Premier League fixtures. The biggest game of this round of fixtures. It is, of course, the North London derby. Top of the table, Tottenham take on struggling Arsenal. Spurs go into this game, of course, like I say, top of the table, following last week's 0-0 draw with Chelsea, whilst the Gunners are without a win in their last 3 games, with their last outing being a 2-1 loss at the hands of Wolves last Sunday. But of course, as we know, in a derby, a North London derby, form goes completely out the window, and it's all about who wants it more. Who's going to take the bragging rights in this fixture? And for Spurs, there is a bit of a worry going into the game as Harry Kane, Jose Mourinho has said he is struggling to be fit for this game, stating that he could possibly miss out on this fixture. Kane, of course, is one of the top goal scorers in this fixture, although this could simply be a dose of Mourinho mind games ahead of the derby. Whilst for Arsenal, we all know what their problem is. They lack creativity and they're struggling right now to get things working in the attacking third. But this could be the perfect opportunity and the perfect game for everything to click into place and come together and spring into action once more, especially for someone like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who has really struggled over recent weeks to get his form reignited. So this could be the perfect game for him to re-announce himself to the Arsenal fans and to rival fans alike. As far as the prediction goes, looking at it, you'd probably give Tottenham the edge here, with or without Harry Kane. But I don't know if that's going to be enough. I don't know if with or without Harry Kane, it may be enough for this kind of fixture. If Arsenal sit back, defend, and attempt to counter Tottenham, it could possibly work for the Gunners. We've seen them do it in tough fixtures for the Gunners in recent months, particularly towards the end of last season. And of course, we have seen that Tottenham do struggle against teams that play with a low block to break them down. So it could work for the Gunners. I don't see them winning this game by any means. I can certainly see them taking a point, however. So my head says Tottenham win. My heart says a draw. And with no confidence at all, I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw in this game. It's a risky shout, I understand that, but I've got a feeling, I've got a gut instinct, a gut feeling that Arsenal will, with all due respect, may upset Spurs a little here and will get a point from this game. And with that, that wraps up yet another Premier League prediction show. But of course, this is just one man's thoughts, one man's opinions, one man's predictions on all of these rounds, all of this round of fixtures. I want to know what you guys think. What are your predictions for this upcoming weekend's fixtures? What are your thoughts on the games? What are your predictions? I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, predictions, opinions, whatever, in the comment section below. I'm sure they'll all make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Premier League prediction show. And I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.